Now we've got to start putting some depth in here now. What I'm using is a mixture of the sap green, the black, and a little bit of brown. And what I'm doing here is trying to pave a way that makes sense. In other words, very random, but trying to leave some of the light. You can see this area I've just been working on. It's coming along. But you've got to break it up. You can't just have one tone. Now, I've done this several times now with the first layer, which is still, some of that is, see that area there is still showing through from that base colour I put on. So just had to take all this green. I like this to get, like over here, I like the palette to dry out. I put quite a lot of green on there yesterday when I did it, so I now know that drying overnight, I can now refresh it and use it, as well as of course dipping into the raw colour. You see how that's coming? It's a painstaking job, but I find it really fascinating that you can recreate this. Now the other thing that I've said many times is we don't want all green, so we had to take the brown. Again, this was done yesterday, so now I can now do that. I mean, you could dab into here, but I find this better though, because you've got lots of different colours. You can see it looks a bit of a mess, but in fact it's perfect for me because I can choose different tones to put in my pictures. Just there, while you've been watching there, in the last few minutes, I've changed that. It's still not right because we still need to create the depth. You see how nicely that looks because I put the dark, you saw that, and it must have looked odd when I first did that. But now it's come up very well. Now let's do a little bit more brown. I do like a little variation. Great. Now I'm going to switch paint brushes now, and I'm going to use my number 1. Here we are, a number 1 brush. Now here we've got to be a little bit more fussy, so here I might have to put some more black in my palette here. Although again I can dip in up here if I need it, like that, just add a little bit more. But what I'm looking for now is a much, much darker. Again, I don't want it to be black, I want it to be a mixture of the very strong tones. Now that looks to be about right. You see, mixing it on the palette gives you a much better idea. You can see what it looks like. Bear in mind, it's always going to lighten up. So now we've got to be fussier. So now I've got to pick my spots. Let's pick a spot there, for instance. Now, what I'm doing now is putting it in, trying to create light here and light there, but moving the dark so that it creates a depth. And that looks a bit odd, but it won't do. Bear in mind, as you know, folks, I can put the light back in. Would be nice to actually make that just a little darker in there. Now you're going to be picking your spots now and travel about a bit. Don't just do one, just do that. See, that looks nice there. I just feel that this ought to be darker in here now. Again, this is going to take me quite a long time to do, so I will show you little bits and you can return to it. I mean, I can do this up there, and that looks good, so I can move around, and I can return to that if I need to. Now, probably some of you might be thinking, well, what if I make a mistake? What if there's an area I don't like? Well, generally speaking, I work from the light to the dark, and I don't make mistakes. But I will show you in a minute or two when I get just a bit more more, a bit further down, how I could, if I wanted to, change what I put down there. I like that. That looks great. But what if, let's say, an area, an obscure area, what about over here? Let's say I didn't like that. If I get my brush, I think probably a number 3 or number 4, doesn't matter, dip it in your water. Now, okay, this is what I'm doing. No colour on it, other than the colour of the water, which is a greeny tone. And then we just put the water on, like that. Now what I'm trying to do now, and you can see it already, I'm trying to lighten one little area there, because I wanted it to be lighter. And then just give it a couple of seconds, and then just put your tissue on it. Got it? Now I know you think, oh, I don't like that, it looks too bright. But what it's done, folks, is brought it back to, I'll just make sure I dry it right off before I start again. Now, I think what I can do now is go back in with my greens and just redo it. But I've lightened it up. In fact, it might be nice if I just put a little bit of ochre in there as well, as I've got a nice light colour, like that. A little bit of that's a bit too much, but you can put it on, you can spread it around. So I've now created a light area. If I want to, I can come back in with my other pencil. I keep calling these pencils, I have the habit of the pastel pencil. And we can darken it again. Put a bit of dark in there to enhance what I've just done. Now, I don't recommend you do this too many times. I would prefer, if you can, try to do what I'm doing. Just now the number 1 brush here is just a little more precise, and I can be more accurate. Now, there's not a lot more I don't think I want to do, because that's looking really nice. Maybe I like the idea of that, so maybe I'll make it just a little darker in spots. Like, you've got to watch it. If there's too much water on your brush, it spreads. This is why I like my dry palette. I can dry brush it. Yeah, so make that a little darker. Now that looks really nice now. I think I'm dark enough in there. I've got my trees dark enough. I like the idea of the light coming from behind the tree, there, and there. There and there. Maybe I can just make this a little darker in here. Either side of that branch that's coming up. Now, I've just seen this. This is just a clump, really, which needs to be broken up just a bit with some dark. But otherwise, I'm really happy the way that's come out. I bet you didn't think that was going to look like that, did you? So that whole area is done. Now there is another thing, and I will show you this. I've squeezed just a little drop of the lemon yellow on here, and I've got my white. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my white from my pan here onto the yellow, and also let's put just a little spot of green as well There we are. Now you see that? Now what we can do with that is mix it together like that, and we can apply it where we think we need it. Now I don't necessarily think I do. I think this is good. But watch this as I just add just a little bit of light. Now you could mix this and this together. You don't have to have the lemon yellow in the tube, which I've got. But that does sometimes give you just an advantage. Now that looks lovely. And you can just put in the odd little bit. I don't want to do too much because I'm very happy with the way I've got that. If I wanted just to emphasise that light there, I could. Or, a little while ago I showed you how I was separating that. It's just a bunch of trees at the back. Now that is nice, lovely. I'm not going to touch it anymore.